home. First thing this morning, Mr. Speaker, the Government briefed the Shadow Defence Secretary, the Speakers of both Houses, the Liberal Democrats Defence spokesperson and the Chair of the House of Commons Defence Committee. I can tell the House now this afternoon that our initial assessment is that the planned targets were all successfully hit and we've seen no evidence of civilian casualties. Mr. Speaker, since November 2023, the Houthis have waged a campaign of aggression against international shipping in the Red Sea. To date, there have been over 320 attacks. These attacks are illegal, they're deadly, and we totally condemn them. Maritime routes have been disrupted, sailors have been killed, commercial ships have been hit and sunk. The Houthis have even targeted aid vessels destined for Yemen itself, as well as military vessels of our allies and partners. Both the Royal and the US Navies have been forced into action in the Red Sea, and last September I met the crew of HMS Diamond, who shot down a ballistic missile and multiple drones in self-defence during their deployment in the Red Sea. Make no mistake, the Houthis act as an agent of instability across the region. They continue to receive backing from Iran, both military and financial, and even Russia has attempted to support the Houthi operations. The aggression in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden is yet another example of how our adversaries are increasingly working together against our interests. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to be clear. This government rejects any Houthi claims that attacking ships in the Red Sea is somehow supporting Gaza. The Houthis were targeting tankers and seizing ships well before the war in Gaza began. Their attacks since have targeted vessels of all nations. So hear me when I say these attacks do absolutely nothing for the Palestinian people or the push for a lasting peace. Mr. Speaker, an estimated 12% of global trade, 30% of container traffic passes through the Red Sea every year. But the Houthi threat has led to a drastic fall. Levels are 55% down on what they were in November 2023. The majority of ships now take a 5,000-mile diversion around the Cape of Good Hope, adding a full fortnight to a journey between Asia and Europe, and pushing up prices of the goods that British people and others rely on. This cannot continue. And Mr. Speaker, in opposition I argued, and I quote, "The lion's share of the responsibility for protecting international freedom of navigation in the Red Sea is being shouldered by the Americans, just as the US has been doing across the world now for 80 years. And since last month, the US has been conducting a sustained campaign targeting the Houthis in Yemen to restore freedom of navigation. They moved 2 carriers into the region. Their recent strikes have destroyed multiple command and control centres, air defence systems, advanced weapons manufacturing sites and advanced weapons storage sites. The US military say their operations have now degraded the effectiveness of the Houthi attack, reporting that ballistic missile launches have dropped by 69%, one-way drone attacks are down by 55%. Mr. Speaker, the US continues to be the UK's closest security ally. They're stepping up in the Red Sea. We are alongside them. Yesterday's joint operation builds on the broader support that we've provided to the US in the region in recent months. That includes air-to-air refuelling, the use of our important military base, Diego Garcia, for regional security operations, and our AF Typhoons to support the defence of the US carrier strike group, which has been coming under near daily attack now from Houthi missiles and drones. Mr. Speaker, this government will always act in the interest of our national and economic security. The UK is now stepping up and encouraging allies to do more to protect our common security, just as we are with last week's deployment of our own carrier strike group starting an 8-month deployment into the Mediterranean and Indo-Pacific. The UK has a long, proud history of taking action to protect freedom of navigation. This illegal Houthi aggression doesn't just disrupt shipping, it doesn't just destabilise the region, it hits our economy here at home. And that's why the government took this decision. That's why the UK has taken this action, to help protect freedom of navigation, reinforce regional stability, strengthen economic security for families across the country. Mr. Speaker, we are determined that we will keep Britain secure at home and strong abroad.
Shall the Secretary of State, James Coughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'm grateful to the Secretary of State for early sight of his statement and to the Minister of State for the Armed Forces for the briefing he extended to myself and other parliamentarians earlier today. As far as His Majesty's opposition are concerned, the rationale for these actions has not changed since we undertook similar operations in government in the months leading up to the general election with the support of the then opposition, and we agree that this action is effectively an act of self-defence on behalf of ourselves and our closest allies. After all, with the main target for RAF Typhoons being a Houthi drone factory, we should remember that drones were used by the Houthis to target our own naval ships, such as the attempted drone attack on HMS Diamond in January last year. But whilst HMS Diamond was able to take effective action in response on that occasion, we know that this is a capability that can be produced in very large numbers and that the threat remains a clear and present danger. Indeed, we understand that the US Navy continues to be subject to Houthi aggression, including from drones. Thus, in our view, it is entirely legitimate to support the defence of our close ally, the US, and to prevent future potential attacks on our own fleet and international shipping by attacking the Houthi drone threat at source. But the Houthis' actions are not just a threat to ourselves and our allies. As the Secretary of State said, they are illegal and completely counter to international humanitarian priorities, given that their attacks have imperilled aid deliveries to the Yemeni people, whilst undermining a crucial shipping route for grain en route to some of the poorest people in the world. The government therefore has our full support for this latest operation, and we are grateful on this side to the brave and highly skilled personnel of the Royal Air Force who conducted the mission, including both the Typhoon crews and those supporting the air-to-air refuelling mission. In particular, we welcome their safe return and completion of what appears to be a successful operation in terms of degrading Houthi drone capability. Of course, the US have been undertaking their own self-defence against Houthi attacks, and we very much welcome the close working with US allies, as was the case when we were in government and under the previous administration in the US. This underlines the continuity of our most important strategic military partnership, and it is right that we work as closely as possible with the US to address threats to freedom of navigation. That said, Mr. Speaker, that freedom of navigation is vital to the ships of many nations, not just the UK and the US. The whole world benefits from action taken to keep international shipping flowing, supporting the wider economy. So can the Secretary of State update us on what talks he has had with other allies, including NATO members, on providing direct military support against the Houthi threat in future? After all, this is not only a threat to many other nations, it involves other hostile states, notably Iran, with their long-running support not just for the Houthis, but also Hezbollah, Hamas and other armed groups in Iraq and elsewhere. So how will the UK dock into the approach being taken by the new US administration towards Iran? The Secretary of State also referred to Russian involvement. Can he confirm reports that the Houthis have received targeting assistance with potential ballistic missile attacks from Russia? And does this not show why supporting Ukraine against Russia is about a much wider strategic picture that directly threatens the United Kingdom? He also referred to the use of our military base, Diego Garcia, for regional security operations. Well, soon it will not be ours, Mr. Speaker. And doesn't this kind of action show why surrendering its sovereignty is so reckless? Finally, turning to the SDR. It was very concerning that the Permanent Secretary to the Ministry of Defence said to the PAC yesterday, and I quote, "It is a strategic defence review that will need to be translated into a set of specific investment decisions in individual capabilities and projects. That will be work for later in the summer and into the autumn. He knows that there are urgent procurement decisions needed that relate directly to the Houthi threat in the Red Sea, not least upgrades to the Sea Viper system, which we believe must be accelerated. He also knows that procurement is largely on hold, awaiting the publication of the SDR. So he promised to publish the SDR in the spring. Can he confirm it will definitely be published in May, which is the last month of spring, and most importantly, that in May we will see the full detail on all major individual procurement choices so that the MOD can get on with them as a matter of the utmost urgency?
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, can I welcome the honourable gentleman's tone and the content of his response to the statement. Labour backed the previous government's strikes against the Houthis. He points out for the House that the rationale then is the same as the rationale now, and that was a useful contribution to this discussion. He's right to say that the clear and present threat that the Houthis pose to all nations, including to ours and to our closest allies, is also the same. And, Mr. Speaker, when I was Shadow Defence Secretary and responded to the previous government, I did so as he does to me today, because this is bigger than politics. This is about freedom of navigation, it's about regional stability, and it is also about that most important security relationship that the UK has with the US. He asks me about some specific capabilities. I have to say to him, look, we are now able to plan to provide the best possible kit for our armed forces because of the historic commitment to raising the level of defence spending to 2.5% that the Prime Minister made to this House in February, 3 years earlier than his own unfunded plans, and then, of course, moving it to 3% in the next Parliament. He asks about the capabilities on some of our naval ships. And when I met the crew of the HMS Diamond in the autumn, they demonstrated to me and talked to me in detail about just how exceptional their response to that multiple attack was, and just how effective the weaponry on HMS Diamond was at that time. And therefore, we are upgrading the ships with a number of capabilities, including Dragonfire, something that he first talked about. But I say to him, we are now doing not just one ship, as he talked about, but 4. We're doing it sooner than he planned, and we're fully funding it, which he hadn't done. And Mr. Speaker, he asks about the discussions with other nations. Those discussions about the importance of regional stability, about the Houthi threats and the freedom of navigation in the Red Sea were discussed by foreign ministers at the G7 and at NATO NATO foreign ministers within the last month. And the very carrier strike group that he welcomed the deployment of last week is multinational by design, is designed to exercise together, but together to reassert some of those basic principles that the attacks last night were designed to support, which is the freedom of navigation of our seas.
To the Select Committee, Tamanji Singh Desi.
Very much, Mr. Speaker. I am grateful to the Secretary of State for his statement, and indeed the Minister for the Armed Forces for his in-person briefing beforehand. I am also glad that our brave service personnel involved in yesterday's strike have returned home safely, and that the Precision Sovereign strike has destroyed the drone factory with no civilian casualties. I agree with the Secretary of State that Houthi attacks since 2023 have tragically killed innocent merchant mariners, led to a shocking 55% drop in shipping through the Red Sea, costing billions, fueled regional instability, and has exacerbated the cost of living crisis here in the UK and across the globe. But how confident is my right honourable friend, based on current intelligence, that after yesterday's strike, that there will be freedom of navigation and that there will be no further loss of life because of the Houthis?
Same state.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm grateful to my honourable friend's support for the action that we took overnight. It is part of a sustained campaign, which is a US campaign that we are working alongside. There is no overnight solution to this, but the evidence that is reported from the US military of this new sustained intensive campaign seems to be having an effect on the pace and the rate and the threat that the Houthis pose. And our action last night was designed to reinforce that campaign, to support the push for regional stability, and also to protect the domestic economy and the impact of the disruption in international shipping and the effect that that has on prices for ordinary people.
Liberal Democrat spokesperson Helen Maguire.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to the Secretary of State for advance sight of his statement and for the briefing from the Minister for the Armed Forces earlier today. The Houthis' destabilising military campaign in the Red Sea has had a chilling effect on trade through that vital waterway, threatening lives while also imposing costs on British businesses and consumers. The Houthis cannot be allowed to act with impunity and hold the global economy to ransom by restricting freedom of navigation. It's important that their military capabilities are degraded to ensure that trade can flow freely, and that's why we on these benches support the case for limited strikes, and we thank the service personnel involved for their bravery and are pleased that they have returned home safely. It's vital, though, that we fully understand the operational goals behind the mission, as well as the intelligence planning and coordination of the strikes. So can the Minister outline to the House why the government has chosen on this occasion to join the US forces in a joint strike rather than on previous similar missions? The recent leaks from President Trump's cabinet, also pertaining to military action in Yemen against the Houthis, raises concerning questions about how secure US intelligence is and the possible impact on British service personnel. In light of those leaks, can the Minister reassure us that intelligence sharing with the US is completely secure, and whether the government has undertaken an assessment of the security of our intelligence sharing networks with the US? I was reassured to hear from the Minister that the government does not have evidence of any loss of civilian life. So can the Minister update the House on what steps were taken ahead of the mission in an effort to minimise civilian casualties?
Mr. Speaker, I neglected to respond to the honourable gentleman on the SDR, and just would say to him, when the SDR is published in the spring, then he will have all his questions answered. And to the honourable lady, I welcome her recognition of the importance of degrading military capabilities of the Houthis. I welcome her support for the action that we took last night. I say to her with confidence and reassurance that our own UK intelligence, our own UK communication systems remain secure. And in response to her question about why now, first of all, it is action and a decision that we took that is in line with long-established policy, UK policy and the UN Charter. Secondly, it is a reflection of the fact that the US, as I've reported to the House, is stepping up, and we as a close ally are alongside them in this action. And third, it is to protect our economy at home, because the majority of the shipping in this busiest of international sea routes has this big detour that pushes up prices, so that it has a direct impact, not just on our security interests, but on our economic interests in Britain. And that's why we're acting.
Emily Thorne.
Thank you very much, Mr.